On my block podcast, previewing what we thought was going to be a favorable matchup for the Green Bay Packers at home this weekend versus the Minnesota Vikings. Things have changed. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, rate, review on our Process to Perform channel on youtube.com. You can find me at MikeWahle68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. Our show is always presented by betonline.ag. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and match reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. On BetOnline, it continues to be your fastest and easiest way. I forgot football. And NCAA football, which we don't even talk about because there might as well be professional football now. But BetOnline continues to be your fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get into the action. Remember, use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. So this was a pick'em game. This was Packers at home by 1, which is a pick'em game, and then it actually went to a pick'em game. Then the Vikings go out and beat the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football in a game where they matched physicality, and I'm going to show a lot of this tape. They matched physicality with one of the most physical teams, or what we think of as one of the most physical teams in football. Injuries aside, they were missing Debo, they were missing Trent Williams. That's not why they lost the game. They were outplayed by the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, all of a sudden, you spin the narrative around their record, which I believe now is 3-4. You spin it a little bit differently because you look at these games. They've lost 4 games by a total of 20 points. So they lose to Tampa 20-17. Tampa's first in the NFC South. They lose to Philly 34-28. They're first in the NFC East. They lose to the Chargers. Okay, 28-24, bad loss. Beat Carolina, who they should beat. Lose to Kansas City, number 1 in the world, 27-20. Beat the Chicago Bears, who they should beat. Now all of a sudden they beat the San Francisco 49ers 22-17. And you look at their next 5 games. I'm just taking you put the spectacles on for the Minnesota Vikings fan base or the organization. They go Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans, Denver, Chicago, bye week, Las Vegas. Las Vegas is in a bad way. We'll talk about them later. That's 5 wins right there. If you're sitting in the Minnesota building, that's 5 wins. They're going to be favoring all 5 of those games if they keep playing how they're playing, especially. So all of a sudden, you look at that and you go, okay, they could be 8-4. They have something to play for here going into the home stretch. Gets really interesting. Meanwhile, Packers coming off the worst loss of the season by far. 1-5 Broncos at the time. And they're just showing signs of a team that's just not necessarily on the same page. You have execution errors all over the board, routes, blocking assignments, run fits, coverage communication. Everything that needed to be addressed in the bye week was exposed by the Broncos, which is just a crazy thing. We talked about it on Monday, but it's just crazy to think, what did you get done during your bye week? We self-scouted. We did, we went through the standard boilerplate procedure of what they've done for the last 10 years in the league, and you just go, well, you didn't get any better. You forgot that you're supposed to get better. Key stats here. Offensively, for the good. Red zone scoring, we're number 8 in the league, 63%. We're top half of the league in third and fourth down percentages, so conversion percentages. The bad, offensively, we average 289 total yards, good for 26th in the league. Our 3.8 yards per carry rushing is 24th in the league. We only rush the ball 24 times a game, good for 24th in the league. That could become because some of the scores, obviously. Interception percentage, 3.6%, good for 29th in the league. Completion percentage, 57%, good for 31st in the league. So a lot of things are being pointed to Jordan Love right now. Here's what my takeaway is. We're putting trust in players who haven't earned our trust. And this isn't a fan thing. This is a player. This is a locker room. This is an organization thing. You're putting trust in players who haven't earned it. And I'm going to go on record saying, I think Jordan Love earns it by default. He's been there for 4 years. He's proven he knows the offense. This is not what I'm talking about at all. You're calling deeper routes to young receivers that don't run the right routes on the short stuff. They don't hold the red line on the deep. They don't make plays when you need them to make plays. They don't run in front of a safety when you should run. Instead, they run behind a safety. They don't hold the red line on the sideline. They run the wrong routes. It's all over the tape. So you're throwing to these guys who aren't running the right stuff, and then we're blaming the quarterback. We've gone away from throwing to the middle field of the We've gone away from throwing to the middle of the field, which I think everybody, including myself, thought was, Jordan Love is really good at what? Quick outs, middle of the field stuff. We don't run middle of the field stuff. It's like you look at it's shot routes and quick outs. It's different. We're outside the hash throws. We're forcing the run, and this is a coaching thing. This is a play calling thing. We're forcing the run with what I would just call non-dominant players. And we're over scheming. In other words, the solution is always to scheme instead of execute. We prioritize scheming instead of sort of, let's just teach these guys, let's execute better. Let's execute simple stuff at a higher level. The other side of this on the defense, look, we're 21st in points per game. We're 16th in total yards per game. We're 13th in touchdowns per game. We're not good, but we're an average defense. An average. We're certainly. Listen. There's some injuries over there. We're certainly not as good as the Green Bay Packers defense isn't as good as they expect to be. And Joe Barry's been getting beat up, and I don't know if I'm a huge fan. But here's the bad, and here's the bad from the last 3 years that's just carried over to this year again. 4.5 yards per carry, 25th in the league. 144 yards or 143.7 yards rushing a game, 30th in the league. 27th in takeaways per game. We're -2 in the turnover margin. We're 27th in the time of possession. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into that. I'm throwing stats out there. You need to put some context to them. But 4.5 yards a carry, 144 yards per game rushing. That's been a problem for years now. The passing stats look better on the other side because teams are going to run the ball against us. And you really think, what's the biggest issue on defense? It probably isn't even the running game. It's probably the lack of turnovers. Like, why do we not do a better job of forcing teams to turn the ball over? We don't really affect the quarterback, aside from Rashawn Gary, on a consistent basis. We have 16 sacks total, which isn't bad. Again, it's not bad, but you're like, we have 7 or 8 first-round draft picks. The Ravens have 29 sacks. Bills have 25. Eagles and the Dolphins have 24. So you're just not where you want to go. You're entering into a game where you got a team that feels like they're on the down, and people are kind of accepting now, at least externally, I think people are accepting, okay, maybe this team isn't as good as we thought they were. Maybe Jordan Love's not ready for prime time. Maybe these receivers just aren't running the wrong routes and put them in a bad position. There's this huge debate going on. I'm sure, and I'll just tell you from experience, like, they like to say that noise isn't being heard in the building. It's being heard. And I'm not talking about the noise from podcasters or media guys. I'm talking about the facts that guys are running the wrong routes. A guy like Jordan Love, as good as a guy as he may or may not be, if he's waking up in the morning having to hear about how he's not producing, and he's turning on the tape, and guys are running behind the safety, guys are not holding the red line, guys are running the wrong routes, and he's going, I got broad shoulders, I'm going to take it. But everybody in the building knows what's happening. Like the onus and the responsibility and the accountability, I hope, from the locker room is forcing some of these guys who are screwing up all the time. And that could be the offensive line. It could be the guys who are missing tackle. I hope that there's an accountability that's going on, and we're not just like, oh, the media's hard on us. Oh, what was me? There's 2 different types of teams in the National Football League, and it's based on the leadership in the locker room. Those guys are like, turn it off, don't listen to it. It doesn't matter. It only matters what's in here, but they don't fix the problem. And there's guys who are like, take it for what it is. Let's just watch this tape and get better and hold each other accountable to what's going on. Let's hold ourselves to the highest standard possible so we don't have to worry about this nonsense. On the other side of the ball, you got the Vikings, who all of a sudden at 3-4 feel pretty good. Like, never have similar records felt so different. Madison and Cam Akers look good on Monday. Not necessarily running the football, but just all the, like, Cam Akers had a couple of big runs, made some plays in the passing game. Madison just looks like a solid, a solid runner for a team that doesn't run the ball very much. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson's not playing, and all of a sudden you go, where are they going to get talent? Well, they have Hawkinson. They signed him to a big deal. He's a great tight end, who's playing, obviously coming from Detroit. But Jordan Addison, the rookie out of USC, has a big day, 7 for 123 and 2 touchdowns. Hawkinson has 11 for 86. So they pick up the slack. Kirk Cousins, like Kirk Cousins he's just one of those dudes where I always say like he's good enough to get a big contract, right? He puts out numbers, they don't win games. And sometimes he has games like this. He's not a Monday Night Football guy. I think he was like 2-10 on Monday Night Football. I mean, primetime games. Dude goes 35 for 45 against one of the top defenses in the league. I mean, and the Niners thump. 35 for 45, 378, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And the pick was guy stole the ball from Madison. GJ Chard. Best out of the season. Looked really good. The thing that he does that is just infuriating is he stands in the pocket. He doesn't, I mean, every once in a while they'll do a little rollout or bootleg, but he stands in the pocket. He just stands like a damn statue, and he just delivers the ball last second. He's really, really good at processing. They've done an excellent job. They did 2 things in this game, the game against the Niners, that I would expect to see again. They like to go 5-man protection, so they might chip out, but they're getting 5 people in the routes. And what that does is it takes away some other people from the party as far as if you're going to bring extra guys. It gives him more, but I think more importantly, it gives him more options to get to the second option faster. Like he is processing at an incredible rate right now, and so it's hard to get him on the ground. Let's watch some tape. I think we're going to look at who we're going to look at first here. Okay, so defensively, you're looking at similar teams offensively. The Vikings are 18th in points per game. They're both around 21 points per game. They outgain us by 60 yards, 354. They're number 11 in the league at yards per game. They only run the ball 19 times a game. Okay, they have no rushing touchdowns. They're last in the league in both. Defensively, with Brian Flores, I just want to give some context, okay? Brian Flores likes to pressure. And so there's always opportunities when you pressure. And they'll pressure they play a lot of off zone. They'll pressure with zone coverage. They'll also pressure with man. The key in this game is identifying when they're coming, which is a lot, what your first reads are, and taking what's available. And when you do that, you find success. When you don't, you have struggles. Harrison Smith is still elite. Harrison Smith plays around in the secondary a little bit. You'll see opportunities where he's making great plays. You'll see other opportunities where he's trying to jump around and kind of lets the person in his zone down the alley make a big play. They're 20th in the league in points per game. They're 15th in the league in yards per game. And they give up 105 yards rushing. Okay, so this is on paper. They played some good teams: Chiefs, Niners, Tampa. This looks like a pretty even matchup. They're 20th in turnover ratio, 29th in time of possession. I mean, you're kind of looking at like neither of these aren't. This isn't a sexy game, right? This isn't a primetime game. But there's things to be seen here. The first is you got to deal with this pressure. Let me get rid of this overlay. There we go. You got to deal with this pressure. When they pressure, sometimes they play off. See at the top of the screen, they're going to drop. And Ayuk just has a really easy out. You see the leverage that they play. He's open to the inside. The outside turn's going to be wide open. The defensive back literally can't turn his body around fast enough. So if you can throw on time, the one thing they were talking about on Monday Night Football, if anybody watched over and over again, was just how Brock Purdy throws on time. The anticipation throws that you see a la NCAA football back in the 90s and 2000s. It was all anticipation throws. He does a really good job of that. So that's something I think from Jordan Love's standpoint, you got to really trust your receivers. And that's obviously a problem that we've been talking about, but that's one of those things in this game where you got to make some anticipation throws because of the way they play. You see everybody stacked up here again on the line of scrimmage. Obviously, if you're going to release some tight ends, people are going to be open, but you could be in zero. You could see zero to this week more than you've seen the entire year. A little false start by Juwan Jennings here, but he ends up getting, you see, they're just playing off coverage. When they blitz, they'll play off. They'll try to drop. It's late. What you have to do is you have to be able to have answers fast off the line of scrimmage. This is a problem that plagues the Green Bay Packers as far as being able to read the right hot routes. It happened last week against the Broncos. Happened the week before that. We showed it on tape. You have to understand what your hot routes are. You have to be able to hit them like this. You have to make them pay for putting 9 men, putting 8 men up at the line of scrimmage, even if they're going to drop. The other thing is you have to realize that whether or not your team can block them up or not. with the guys that are in the game. The, I, that's where the San Francisco 49ers struggled at times. I think that's where the Green Bay Packers would struggle at times. They're rushing 5, traditional 3-4 defense here. They're rushing 5, and when you're rushing 5, it means you only got 6 in the back. There's opportunities to make plays, and you see how deep their safeties are playing. We got linebackers that read, and they're going to migrate, especially to the tight end position. Kittle had a big game. I think he had 11 catches, but they're going to migrate toward the tight end position. The route combinations here to expect too high in a lot of their routes. They're expecting too high or too high rotations because of the way that the Vikings have shown on tape. So they have answers all over the field for a majority of this game. They bring a cat. We used to call this corner fire, corner cat. And this is what I'm talking about. Purdy just has an answer right now. Ayuk doesn't even go out on his route. He just bubbles out. And you just get a quick 5. They bring all that plus the linebacker. And when you do that, you bring the let me go back here. So you got 5 up at the line of scrimmage, plus you're going to bring the linebacker late. Okay, the Niners run a ton at like 21-12 personnel. All right, so you're going to be in your base pressure a lot. Now, for my money, I'm going to run out of nickel and I'm going to throw out a base as much as I can. I'll go play action out of base. I'll throw out a base. The reason being, you just have one less athlete in the backfield. I think it limits their coverage ability. You see Kittle gets wide open on the crosser here. You've seen this route before from Christian Watson in a Green Bay Packers uniform. You got leverage. 44 for the Minnesota Vikings is kind of all over this tape. And not that he's a good or bad player. I think he's the team captain, Josh Metellus. He's one of those guys that plays at the line of scrimmage a lot. He has the responsibility of covering tight ends because they run so much pressure that if he's not pressuring, sometimes he's matched up one-on-ones and he has man coverage. There's just opportunities against this guy. And I think when you look at the passing game, there's opportunities, but also in the running game, he's one of those guys where you feel like it's a favorable matchup for Musgrave and Kraft in the tight end position in the running game. Quick answers to playmakers. This was obviously a touchdown to McCaffrey. So they run what essentially just turns out to be a bubble screen. But because these guys have players up, and these are the answers you have to have at the line of scrimmage. And I don't know if Matt LaFleur has allowed Jordan Love the ability to make these calls at the line of scrimmage. Let's just assume so or hope so. But these kind of plays where you're just getting 3-on-3, like, in any sport, if you got 3-on-3, you feel good about it. If you're attacking, if you feel good, if you're 3-on-3 in soccer, good. Basketball, good. Because you are essentially saying my best players have a one-on-one matchup where they can break arm tackles. Those are huge opportunities for the Green Bay Packers. You think about Aaron Jones, you think about Christian Watson. The thing is, you have to catch the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to pressure you. What you don't want to do is waste reps or waste opportunities on plays that aren't designed for success against that defense. In other words, if you can call checks into some of this stuff, or if you have answers or adjustments when they decide to bring 8, bring 7, bring 6, bring 9, when they decide to go all out, you have to have calls and answers and then capitalize those answers, because Flores will give you those looks from a defensive coordinator standpoint. This is the other thing. You got to know your limits. Our tight ends cannot block their defensive ends. Our tight ends cannot block Danielle Hunter. They cannot block DJ Wonnum. They're not going to do a good job against them. But they can block 44. So put yourself in a position, whether it's by scheme, by personnel grouping, but by play design, don't ask them to do something they can't do. The Niners tight ends are better blockers than our guys by a mile. And when they tried to block 99 and 98, it was a problem. This is the other thing. This kid, Jonathan Bullard, not a kid, sorry. This large human destroyed the Niners rushing game. I think I got 4 clips here. Playing half a man against Kittle, just completely smashes down the pocket. Again, Kittle's good. So know your limits. Don't call plays where you're like, hey, you're gonna have to block the heavy 5 technique. They're in base personnel, probably in this. You're gonna have to block Bullard. Sound good? Yeah, I can do it, coach. No, you can't. We got again good tight end, good blocking tight ends, and a receiver double teaming 98, tackle for loss. Okay. Now you might say they had an off night, whatever. This team blocks better than we do. Okay, the San Francisco 49ers minus Trent Williams are essentially the Green Bay Packers offensive line. Like it's same. Maybe, I like Jake Brendel at the center position, but these guys, you're looking at very, very similar lines from a talent standpoint. Okay, their tight ends are much, much better at blocking in the run game and the pass game. So, having said that, if they can't block them, take it off tape. Don't think that your guys can block them. This you can do. You get Danielle Hunter, who's probably 265 pounds in a 4-point stance versus your right guard and right tackle. Okay, this I like. Take it all day. You see that matchup, take advantage of that matchup. Put them in positions where they're going to force that matchup and know where you're going to go with the ball. But this guy, I mean, he's just destroying right guard, center, double teams on the backside, tight end plays. I mean, he had a game that makes you, he jumps off tape, attacks the tackle, doesn't go anywhere, not getting moved off the ball at all. Inside rip here, penetrating, forcing the ball back. Guy had a really, really good game. Now, Harrison Smith, really good player. Fun fact about Harrison Smith, I think this is true. I believe he was the national championship boxer out of Notre Dame. I think he was a national championship boxer. Or national champion, however you say that. But right here, he's showing split safety look. You see 24 over on the 42-yard line south of the left hash here. And they've got essentially a 3-by-2 because they've got the running back or tight end hipped off on the left side of the left tackle here. But Harrison Smith is actually taking a look at Kittle here and leaves Ayuk wide open. And they're rotating safety. So they start what you think a two high looks. And Minnesota does this a lot, and they get caught. They rotate 2, but they want Harrison Smith to play that robber look. And so he's going to try to trap the backside. If you play leverage, outside leverage on the far side of the field, that safety has a hard time getting over. We saw the same thing versus the Denver Broncos last week. So those, kind of bending in routes here are open. There are plays to be made. Danielle Hunter, I forgot if he has 8 or 9 sacks. He is the sack leader in the National Football League as of this moment. This right tackle is the bane of my existence. I work with offensive linemen. Watching this makes my skin crawl. Okay, you have a fast player who's a better athlete, and you set out wide, and you think you're not going to get beat. That is absolutely absurd. They're coaching this stuff. I rant for 2 hours on this. But anyways, he's the sack leader. What a terrible pass set, man. I mean, that's just bad. That's bad. That you're condoning that as a coach is no bueno. Sack leader, got to be aware of it. Zach Tom's been playing really well. He had 2 games against Hutchinson and Max Crosby. I think the Hutchinson game was actually fine. Everybody, I think people watch tape differently than I do. Max Crosby, you're struggling. Everyone's struggling against Max Crosby. He's played really well this year. You look at that on the other side of the ball. You got to we're at home. You got to make sure that Rasheed Walker feels really comfortable with what he's doing. It's kind of as a side note. You're playing against a guy like this. Danielle Hunter's really good. You have to be confident in what you're doing. You have to be confident in the snap count. You have to be confident. You have to be able to look at your player the whole time. Like, take advantage of being at home. right? And just get yourself when you're in a when he gets back and gets in a good set and a good body position, he wins every rep, right? It's just those reps where he's late, where he feels like he has to overcompensate, where he turns early. Those are the reps, and it's the same for everybody. That's where they get in trouble. Minnesota Vikings, I think, are 31st in the league in rushing attempts per game, and they have, or maybe 31st or 32nd, and they have 0 rushing touchdowns. Keep this game one dimensional. Keep it one dimensional. Do not let Madison or Cam Akers start breaking out these. This is the first play of the game. It's 20 yards. Now, Quay Walker, McDuffie does this already. This is clinic tape this is how Fred Warner attacks a fullback. This is old school, right? Confrontation on their side of the line of scrimmage makes this play go nowhere because Akers has to make a cut too early. Backside play. I think this is Hargrave. What a pickup for them. Hargrave comes over and makes this play. But really, the way that Fred Warner attacks this on their side of the line of scrimmage shuts this play down before it starts. When you're running against a fullback, which the Vikings will feature, you got to play on their side of the line of scrimmage. Kirk Cousins is a standing target. I think that's the first thing you think of when you look at this offense. But he doesn't get a sack as much as you would think. And to his credit, because I've never really given him a lot of credit, but to his credit, he gets he'll stand in there and he'll take some punishment and he delivers the ball. At least in this game, he delivered the ball really well. You see, that's their stud left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, got beat early in the game, didn't get beat again. He's been playing at a high level. That'll be a good matchup between him and Preston. I would imagine that Rashawn Gary stays over O'Neal, who had a really good game against Bosa. O'Neal's a guy that surprised me, quite frankly, the right tackle. He looked really good last week. I didn't think he played at a high level last year, but this year, at least last week, I haven't watched too much tape on these guys, but last week he looked really good. But you see again, Bosa comes in, smacks him right in the gut, still delivers a throw. They go under center. And just is able to process from the flat back to the second look. And it's happening like this. Like someone's in his face immediately, and he's just processing really fast right now. And this route takes time, right? You've got a shallow cross, cut back, and you got to sit in there in the pocket and deliver this ball in a critical moment. Double covered. Player has leverage, but Kirk Cousins is just doing a good job of waiting until the last minute, delivering the ball when he has to. We talked about Justin Jefferson not being available. This is one of those situations where you're never going to say they're a better team without him. But maybe you say that Kirk Cousins is playing at a faster processing level because he doesn't have Justin Jefferson to look for. Because we saw that, obviously being a problem last time the Packers played him at home last season when we shut Jefferson down. They really struggled. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison coming out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, first-round draft pick from SC, but just kind of waiting in the wings until he had his opportunity. But these guys played at an incredible level. See Hawkinson comes down here, and they just run a really simple, and I think we're going to see a ton of this. They're going to run 2 goes here. They're going to chip out on Bosa, which, Rashawn Gary has earned the right to get chipped. So you chip out, you stay in 5-man protection. You get your back releasing to the top side. So you got a 1-on-1 up top. But then because of the depth of the linebackers, Hawkinson's able to just sneak into the middle here, first down. Under center play action. Hawkinson is wide open in the middle. They've got 3 guys, they got 2 guys who post up and hold those linebackers in. So the route combinations, Kevin O'Connell's really good at play design, man. Kevin O'Connell's really good. But here's the thing. Most teams aren't throwing this ball. Okay, you got all this space. Kirk Cousins is throwing this ball. Like in the 80s, you're not throwing this ball because TJ Hawkinson is not playing another snap in 2023, right? Because he's going to get absolutely warhammered right in the face by that defensive back if you throw this ball with this kind of timing, leading him into a clean hit. You can't hit him like that anymore. So he ends up making this play, little tackle there. He's fine. Both sides did this all the time with their tight ends. They're kind of throwing him into danger. Just a different time. And sometimes when I watch this, I cringe, and then you realize, you really can't hit him that hard. Screen game could feature big time. We haven't done a great job of showing that we're able to stop the screen game. I think the screen game offensively for us is something that we need to, probably look into featuring a little bit more, to put some time into it. We made a huge mistake on the screen last week, but I digress. This is Hawkinson again. You're getting a really good player involved. Guy's a really good player. Up top, you see he's got leverage on Greenlaw, and they just run a quick out. And the thing about Kirk Cousins is, like, he sees that pre-snap and he's just making that throw. Now, Jordan Love's shown the ability to do this as well. And this is one of those games where you kind of sit around and you go, Kirk Cousins, this is where Kirk Cousins, where you may or may not like him, you may or may not think he's a winner, all of these things. He's certainly a great businessman. His team seems to like him. And the difference between, the Packers and the Vikings right now at the quarterback position is, one, I think from a play calling standpoint, they probably understand each other better. I'm talking about O'Connell and Kirk Cousins. But the other thing too, obviously, is like you might say Jordan Love has more talent or raw ability, but processing speed, knowing where to go with the football, sitting in the pocket, eyes downfield. This is what a quarterback who puts up big numbers looks like. Takes what he can get against a really good team. Yeah, 3-by-1. They throw another screen, this time to Akers. And this is what I'm talking about. You bring Cam Akers from the Rams, comes off that knee injury, and it just looks like maybe he's starting to get rolling. They bring up everybody. He stands in the pocket and just delivers on this. This was a zero blitz on a 3rd and 16 or a 3rd and long with 16 seconds left. And, Jordan Addison has coming out party here. Welcome to the world, man. Under center play action. And you just see the space. This is one of the few times that both of the linebackers respected the run game. And maybe it's because they're in man. And so they're just going to press up, and this is how they want to play. But you did get a ton of space here on the backside, and they run a ton of the Minnesota Vikings. And this is a problem for Green Bay historically. The Minnesota Vikings will run either out of a trip side or a double formation. They will run inside high and then run outside underneath. And this is how they beat us just desperately in the first game of last season. I love this guard pull misdirection play that they used instead of under center play action, just to get the quick screen. Gets everybody going the wrong direction. Got a little bunch look outside here. They run the ball. I'm just showing an Akers here from an explosion standpoint. They run it weak. Simple zone game. This is a really well-coached play. The offensive line coach was a Pro Bowl player for the Denver Broncos. I worked with him in Miami. Really smart guy, and you just see this. They're not obviously good at running, but this is kind of you want to see your players be able to do this. This is a very well coached design. This is a very standard design play, picked up extremely well by the left guard. The left guard is going to double here, and then notices that we've got a rocky nose tackle. So he goes 1-2, sees it, blocks it. Center's able to just get enough for Fred Warner. Fred Warner misses one of the few tackles he misses. It's an arm tackle, albeit. But it's little things like this that make big difference in games. they've coached this, and this is kind of what we talk about. When I was playing with Green Bay, we wouldn't even in practice, like we wouldn't even work on kind of the standard three, like their 4-3 defense. We would work on all the adjustments because the 4-3, we had already worked that for, thousands of reps of just how to, single block somebody, how to double block somebody. So you're always working on, okay, well, what are the tips and tells if they're going to, if they're going to rock the nose tackle? What do we do if they do rock the nose tackle? How are your footwork? So the left guard's footwork is so good here. 1-2. And then immediately, because he's setting that bumper high, like we talked about with Elton Jenkins last week, he immediately slams back on the nose tackle and just clears away. And the center doesn't do a great job here, but does enough to just get a hand and get in front of Warner. And all of a sudden they have an explosive running play. And that's literally like the difference between good lines and good running games and mediocre or poor running games is that. Can you have that person make the adjustment in the moment? Game plan, and this isn't a big deal. A lot of teams do this, but so they decided because of all of the split flow that they'll run, that'll turn into a a tight end drag or an arrow route out the backside. So they're running like a keep pass. They're going to stay man on Hawkinson here with 31. So he follows, and they just design a play where they're going to keep this thing play side, run out the front, just understand where the leverage problems are in that defense. Again, I think I'm just showing this not because this is a really nuanced play, but it showed when I watched this game, it showed me against a really good defense that Kevin O'Connell's a really good play caller. Like their play design is pretty high level. Got trips up top. And so they know, we talked about, game planning, talk about well coach. They know when they go trips up top and they're zoned up like this, that they're not going to press that top guy. That's important. We saw what happened last week when Rasul Douglas thought that we were going to press the top guy, and he got bulldozed, and then Rasul Douglas got picked for the touchdown. Okay, so the Niners are going to be on the same page here. We know that. But the Vikings know how they're going to play this bunch look when they motion in, and they just run a flood route on the backside out of a bunch. So they run a bunch left, flood right, and hit Addison for the touchdown. Big time play design. Now they start in bunch, go motion out. So they just have a trips look. The middle man who was pressed up is now no longer the middle man. And all they're going to run is the up and under on the two outside players that we just showed. This is the same concept that they went on against us, that they went on against a lot of people. A lot of teams run this. It's just the way they're dressing everything up. And they're giving Cousins Hawkinson first, right across the middle. If he's not there, Addison late. Basically just shadow routing him, just trailing him on a 5-yard smash. Easy. These are explosive plays against a really good team. So this is one of those games where for me where you probably felt a certain way about it, and then the Packers haven't been playing well, and this is I think this is a really tough matchup. There's going to be some keys to be able to. The Vikings, it's a divisional rivalry. This has been a big time rival of the Green Bay Packers for a long time. This is one of those games you're going to play those guys twice a year, so you kind of know them already. Danielle Hunter, we've played against. We've seen these guys. For Kirk Cousins, the defense knows how he plays. Hawkinson's been in Detroit, so he's been in the division for a long time. Christian Darrisaw is becoming a name left tackle in the league. He's playing at a high level. O'Neill's their team captain. He's been playing at a high level this year. So we know these guys. There's matchups that are going to be fun to watch. Number one, what they did so well against the Niners, I thought was, Kirk Cousins did a great job. They were in 5-man protection, and the Niners really didn't get home very often. All things considered, usually when you're in 5, it's like, what's the best thing for the Minnesota Vikings? It's spread them out. Maybe you chip out if you got a Bosa or a Gary. You chip out, but you get 5 out in the routes. right? You give them space because Cousins can throw the ball. He has great vision and processing speed. You just need to give him options. And they're basically saying our options are going to take care of what looks like a mismatch in pass rush, particularly in the interior of the offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings. So matchup one, can we get home? Can we disrupt him with a 5-man rush? With five against 5-man protection. Just knowing that, if you bring extra, this last game he looked like he did a pretty good job under exploiting the blitz. But the matchup for me, our 4 down linemen in nickel versus their 5-man protection. Can we get home? Can we pressure? Can we get him off his spot? Make Cousins move off his spot. You have to pressure him up the middle. You have to make him see the rush so he can't see his options. TJ Hawkinson had, I think, 11 catches last week. Get that right. Yeah, 11 for 86. Addison, of course, Jordan Addison had a big game. But Hawkinson's that guy that when you look at these routes, they're getting him involved in the screens. He's the first option on the shallow cross. He does the quick. They're trying to get him involved, right? He's the security blanket, good tight end security blanket for your quarterback. Versus our secondary, who's going to play him? How are they going to play him? Is this? I always thought we brought Quay in to play against guys like Hawkinson, but with the injuries, I just don't think that plays right now. So is this Nixon? Is this Rudy Ford? How are we going to match up against Hawkinson? Are we going to try to zone him off? We can't bracket him now because Addison showed up and played like he has because I think Jair Alexander's still hurt. Like, what's that going to look like? What's our secondary going to look like trying to deal with Hawkins? I should add Addison in that. And then I think the third thing is Harrison Smith, their entire secondary really versus our middle of the field passing game, which is kind of wasn't available last week. George Kittle had 5 for 78 last week, mostly in the middle. George Kittle, we don't have George Kittle on our team, but we have a pass-catching tight end that can scoot in Luke Musgrave. Can we get him to run the right routes, right timing, right speed, right pace, all of that? We're still working on it. But there are options and opportunities there. You got to be able to take a couple shots. George Kittle took a couple shots in this game. They're keying on him more than they would key on Musgrave, certainly. With the speed of Christian Watson, it should play. It should be open. So there are matchups that are favorable for us, I think, but you still have to go out and prove it. We should have a favorable matchup. Kenny Clark versus their second-year guard. Kenny Clark versus anybody in their interior. Wyatt, if he's healthy with that knee, in passing situations. They've done a good job getting rid of the ball fast. He's processing quick. He stands in the pocket, but you do know where he's going to be most of the time. Can you get to him? Can we get our tight ends involved in the middle of the field passing game? Can we start running some higher, multi-leveled in cuts, crossers? Plays were available to the San Francisco 49ers. They didn't make every play this week, certainly, but plays were available to them. And then how are we going to take care of TJ Hawkinson? Those are the matchups I like. The keys to victory kind of follow those. Number one, a comfortable Kirk Cousins is a confident Kirk Cousins. Can we play what I would just call, you talk about complementary football, you're talking about offense and defense. I'm going to talk about complementary defense. Can we rush the passer and hold up in the secondary so we get him off his first and second option? We need to get his eyes moving around, and we need to get to that rush. Last week, again, I don't know this for a fact. It looked like we had a rush plan for Russell Wilson. I hate that idea. I think you give him too much credit. You're not going to do that with Kirk Cousins. You're not worried about him rushing and getting out of the pocket. So it's ears pinned back. Are we going to rush underneath if they give us the opportunity? We're going to bull into the pocket. Are we going to make him feel the presence of the right tackle with Rashawn Gary as far as bulling him into his back? How are we going to deal with that? What moves are we going to be using? But can we get home? Can we really force him with that 4-man look? Can we because the other thing you notice is when Quay's the last couple of weeks when they've sent Quay, those aren't effective rushes. The way that they're sending the timing, it just hasn't looked right as far as they're not. It's not like you're watching Demario Davison, who's literally for the Saints, who's just picking the hell out of the right guard or the center and creating this wide lane, or picking the tackle and then coming off and making a hit. Like, not the same at all. And if you're not doing that against a good offensive line that can pass protect, Chris Cooper is the name of the offensive line coach. Good coach. If you're not doing that, then you're gonna have a really hard time getting home with that guy, and you're kind of you're wasting a player that could be probably better used in the secondary. Number 2, Green Bay has to win the turnover battle this week. You have to win the turnover battle at home. This team got 2 out of Brock Purdy. He might have had a concussion now, blah, 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 blah. You got another one off of early in the game off of Christian McCaffrey. So they went in and beat a good team at their place, committing 3 turnovers. It is mission critical. You know, Jordan Love's had a couple strings, I think 6 or 7 picks in the last 3 weeks. 6 picks in the last 3 weeks. Some are his fault, some are not. Regardless, you want to win the game or give yourself the best opportunity to win. Turnover margin wins games. I have a 3A and a 3B. Number 3A, get Aaron Jones more involved in the passing game. Didn't play a ton last week. Didn't get a ton of rushes. Get him more involved in the passing game. Is that screens? Is that arrows? Is that swing? Get the ball in your best player's hands. Let's not play around with this anymore. You want to win some games? Get the ball in your best player's hands. And B, remove everybody from the box who can't block, especially if we're talking about the run game. If they're in base defense and we got Luke Musgrave in there trying to block Daniil or trying to block DJ Wanham, you're making a mistake. If he's in there trying to block Bullard, you're making a mistake. Right? It's on tape. The San Francisco 49ers have better blockers at the tight end position than we do, and they did not do a good job against those guys. Don't sit here and think that you're going to do a good job because it works on paper, because it's not going to. Run out of nickel, put those guys on the backside, block them out. You can run RPOs off the safety who comes down in the box. You can run RPOs off the backside linebacker. There are opportunities. Use them in different ways, you know. Use their motion, use their speed to lead in, run those slips and scoops. Double tight end looks with the scoop look worked last week, worked for the last couple of weeks. Those are plays that work. I'm talking about play side, tight end on the ball, tight end off the ball. You can work a double team with the defensive end up to the secondary player, 2-on-1. Those plays work. But if you're going to put them in a situation where they got a single block at the point of attack or backside in a critical block, against this team, you're going to have a really hard time finding success. So don't come to the party if you can't dance. Those are the matchups and the things that we like. I got one more thing around the league, kind of an around the thing. You know, you think you got problems. The Green Bay Packers, I think they have problems. And I usually don't condone anonymous sources. I'll just start with that. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Josh McDaniel thing has always been really interesting to me, because obviously when he was in Denver, the sentiment was not only did it not go well, but the way his behavior was less than ideal from a leadership standpoint. And I don't know him at all. Obviously, being around Bill as many years as he was, something had to have rubbed off, you would think, from a positive standpoint. But he goes and the reports were much more scathing about how people felt about him in the building than their actual record. The record wasn't good, but what was scathing from a player's perspective was like how he treated people. You know, there's the report on how he talked to, Jay Cutler and you know, Bus Cook, who's Brett's agent. You know, they walk in and he starts giving him his resume and then starts saying, you know, bad things about Jay to his face. And Jay's, get me out of here. I don't care what it takes. I'm paraphrasing that, of course. But then, all of these things. So then he goes back to New England, and then he comes out and he signs. He's going to sign with the Colts to be their head coach, and he backs out of the deal last minute. And you're just going, there's always like, okay, why do we keep trying to hire the same guys? And there is this thing that you get better in your second job than your first, and we could go into that, but it makes sense. You learn a lot in your first job, the weight of everything that comes to being with a head coach. And then he gets the job with Las Vegas, and obviously Las Vegas is, and the Raiders organization is somebody that's always in the spotlight. It's an old time program. It's from Madden and obviously Al Davis. Everybody knows about them. They're always in there. They were a national topic of conversation for years and years. And this thing comes out about Devontae Adams is not happy. He's not getting the ball. It makes sense. Waller says something. Max Crosby's. Everybody's kind of frustrated about their situation, which is normal. Okay. Then Hunter Renfrow right now is having a problem with Josh. They're not seeing eye to eye. Again, there's two things here that are interesting. One is the Green Bay Packers aren't, killing everybody. And there's a lot of questions outside the building about play calling, Joe Barry. You don't see players just questioning coaches, right? Like, this is a real professional organization, and that's not how you behave. That's not the culture. That's not the standard. It happens here a lot. So that says a lot to, like, for me as an ex-player, that says a lot right there. And again, these are anonymous sources, and so I'm only going to put one just because it's funny. So after they lost the game this last week, it just says, guys goes, well, we have to go in and watch film and listen to the coaches blame us again for the loss. So after that, I'll be good. And you just go, I'm 100% sure that's a real comment. I don't know who said it. The guy's a coward for not putting his name on it. I'm 100% sure that's a true comment, because you could just, like, I've sat in, you're at the restaurant with your boys after the game, you just got your butt kicked, you're sitting in the locker room, and somebody will just say something like that. Well, if things aren't going well and you're feeling sorry for yourself, it's kind of a lick in your wounds comment, right? Well, I was going to go in and I wonder how they're going to blame us for this one. No, but that, you think you have problems in Green Bay being 3-4. That's problems. That organization is, I don't know how you come full circle, come back from that, just from a relationship standpoint, trust standpoint. Who knows who's in charge, general manager, head coach, obviously Stephen Davis, the owner. I mean, there's just so much going on. But listen, the point is, regardless, the Packers go 2-15 this year. Okay, we're not 3-4. We're 2-5. God, that's terrible. Is that true? What are we? We're 3-4 or 2-5? We're 2-4. Excuse me. So we go 2-15 this year. Worst case scenario. Might be better than being in Las Vegas. And with that, I'm not picking this game. I'm telling you, this is going to be a good one. Cousins is playing at a high level. We got a lot to prove on the offensive side for the Green Bay Packers. Hit that subscribe, rate, and review button. Good weekend, guys. Good luck.